8 years ago to the very day we saw the final round of matches in the 2011-2012 Premier League season, and it of course provided the most extraordinary end to a campaign that we've ever seen in this era. United and City level on points going into the final day. City, though, massive favourites because they were home against QPR, but what a 90-plus minutes it would prove to be as we welcome in Craig Burley and Nicol to the show. It looked so easy for City, but boy, they made hard work of it. Let's not forget, re-watching it, I'd forgotten, they were 2-1 down going into injury time. United winning away, it looked like United were going to snatch the title away from them. Dzeko scored, and then Aguero, of course, scoring that extraordinary goal late on. The Aguero shout heard around the world. Craig, you're in the commentary box for this historic moment.
Yeah, and I saw a clip that was floating around a couple of weeks ago. And I'd forgot as well that Dzeko had come off the bench along with Balotelli and scored also in injury time. I mean, that's how late and how desperate it got. And, you know, that impact shouldn't be forgotten as well. But, you know, turning up to the game, Dan, it's never a formality. But, you know, you're a side that were top of the league at home against a team in QPR who'd struggled all year, but did still have the threat of relegation going into the last day hanging over them. So they didn't have nothing to fight for. They had their survival to fight for. But nobody envisaged how much of a struggle it was going to turn out for Manchester City.
What was it like to commentate that game?
Well, I've never seen emotions like it amongst supporters, or rarely. You know, when you think about it, you know, Joey Barton was sent off around 66 minutes. So they were down to 10 men. They were depleted. Djibril Cissé gave them the lead. And then after City equalised, and then Darren Mackie scored after City gave the ball away and there was a counter-attack. Mackie scored with a header to make it 2-1. It was like, OK, City are just going to regroup. But I think there's something like 80% possession, but just couldn't break them down. Paddy Kenny was in goal for QPR. He made save after save after save. And one of the issues, and I remember it in the commentary, was because Balotelli and I think Dzeko were on the bench, they struggle for physicality for balls into the box. And as you know, when a team is defending so deep and so narrow, you need to get good quality crosses in. So it wasn't really until those two players come on that they were able to have a physical presence in the final third. And ultimately, that's what got them over the line.
And you did it with Peter Drury, yes?
Yeah, Peter, one of the nicest, best commentators on the planet. Also one of the calmest, most placid commentators on the planet. I thought, and I've said this to you before, I thought I was going to have to tie him onto the TV gantry when that Aguero goal went in. Staggering, he was screaming, and it was staggering. But up until that very second, I was looking around about, Dan, from our position in the gantry. There was fans crying. There was City fans with their head in their hands. Don't forget, we're seconds away from this game being over. We're seconds away from City handing United the title. I'll never forget looking over the gantry from our heady position, looking down, seeing Roberto Mancini almost on his knees, right by the side of the pitch. They'd blown it. They'd absolutely blown their best ever opportunity. And that was the emotions. It went from the depths of despair. It was tears. They were distraught, to the emotions of one flick from Balotelli, to their key player, to their star man, and there was Sergio Aguero to put it in the back of the net. By the way, he could have went down from a tackle just before he put the strike in, but he stayed on his feet and he got his just rewards. When the goal went in, the place erupted. Peter Drury erupted, and it was over. They got over the line, but bloody hell, they'd made it hell of a difficult for themselves.
It's why we love sport, isn't it, Stevie?
Well, you can't write it. And if you tried to write it down and show it to somebody, they would just say, don't be silly. There's no way that's going to happen. I mean, the circumstances are just, they're just incredible. Having to beat a side like QPR, to win the title, and you're at home. I mean, really, it should have been a given. But as Craig explained it so well, the way it unfolded, it's fantastic now for Man City fans. I mean, it's great for us outsiders watching it. When the goal goes in, I mean, anybody who's a football fan must have been off their seat, unless you're a Man United fan, of course. So, yeah, absolutely extraordinary.
And it had to be Aguero, of course. Great. His celebration, brilliant. I imagine that's something you'll look back on and go, yeah, I quite enjoyed that moment.
Yeah, and I don't know if he got booked for taking his shirt off or what. Who cares? But it was, he was always going to be an icon for the City fans. Anyway, never mind the sort of 8 years he's had since and what he had before. But that goal would forever portray him as a legend at Manchester City. And for it to fall to him, and we know how good a player he is, we know how good a finisher he is, and for him just to dispatch it in the way that he did so late on, it was the last chance. He wasn't going to get another chance. They were not going to get another chance. This was it. And Paddy Kenny, as I said, had made a hell of a lot of saves that day. But he hit it so hard and controlled. And there it was. The title was then delivered on a plate. Let's not forget, these City fans have had to sit at that point and watch Man United win title after title, Champions League after Champions League, FA Cup after FA Cup. They've had their noses rubbed in it so many times. Can you imagine if they had blown it to lowly relegation fight in QPR? These people couldn't have faced work on a Monday morning. So it was all on the line, mate. And as you know, I never really get caught up in the emotion too often. But I remember looking at Peter Drury during that game saying, they've blown this. How the hell are they blowing this? But they had at one point, they had bottled it, and it was incredible. And to see the supporters and see how much it meant to them in defeat and then in victory was actually quite a special moment.
I think I made a fair statement at the start of this segment talking about the fact that this is the most dramatic ending we've seen in the Premier League era, but let's not forget, of course, football did exist before the Premier League. And Stevie, you were involved in that extraordinary match at Anfield, of course. Arsenal taking on your side. Arsenal needed to win by at least 2 goals, and they did so thanks to that late winner from Michael Thomas. Out of the two, Stevie, in your opinion, which was the more dramatic?
Oh, I think you got to say Aguero. The fact that it's the last second, it's the last kick, the whole way the game unfolded. I mean, the only thing we can say is that, both Arsenal and I were going for the title. So it was the two best teams in the league at that time. The City one, the story is just incredible. A team of no hope as QPR, struggling all year against a team that had been sensational pretty much all season. And so the way that unfolded, I have to tell you though, when I saw the pictures of Manchester United players walking around the field having found out the result, the first thing that came to my mind was that game you were talking about, Dan, that we lost to Arsenal, because I knew exactly how they felt. I can't tell you I know how Aguero felt, but I could tell you how Man United players felt walking around. You don't know what to do. You don't want to speak. There's complete silence everywhere. You go in the dressing room eventually and you sit down and you just stare into the ground. You don't want to get changed. You don't, as I said, you don't want to say anything. And eventually one of the coaches will say, right, let's go. And then everybody will make a move. Your head goes into a fog. As I said, I remember it only too well. Unfortunately, I can't quite put myself in the position of Aguero.
To that point, Stevie, which would be harder, do you think? You, for Liverpool against Arsenal, where fate was in your hands, you pretty much had the control of your destiny, or Manchester United, where it didn't matter what you did, it was all reliant on City, and of course they gave you that little bit of chance, that hope, which was taken away from you in the 95th minute?
Well, clearly you want everything to be in your own hands. But the problem that United had was that their game was done and they were told that City were 2-1 behind. Now, as poor as QPR had been, knowing that it's actually injury time, knowing that they have to score twice, otherwise you've won the Premier League title, I don't care how good an imagination you have as a player, you just don't see that happening. Man United players, nobody concerned with Man United would have even dreamt that they would have got 2 goals in that injury time to win the title. So, listen, you want it in your hands, So for United, just for a couple of minutes, they were champions, but then they got taken away big time.
Which was more dramatic for you, Craig? 89 or 2012?
2012, I agree with Stevie. 89, I remember watching it, and as Stevie said, they were the two best sides that year. The fact that Arsenal were able to go over the line at Anfield is not a huge surprise, because, you know, for the very reasons that both us have mentioned. The fact that, you know, QPR were, in most people's eyes, cannon fodder, really, at home, and had been sort of for most of that season. That's why they were in the position that they were in. And I think what makes it so dramatic, and this is what you touched on at the start of this, is it's not that, you know, they had 20 minutes left to get a winner. It's not that they had all that time left and the clock was ticking slowly. The clock was going round and like a Formula One car. You know, they needed 2 goals after 90 minutes when the board went up for injury time. They needed 2 goals. And when Dzeko got that header, there was a little bit of hope. In 90 minutes, when the fourth official put the board up, it was done. They had given up. The fans had given up. They were crying. And so the very fact that they got 2 goals in injury time, coming back from a team to beat a team who, if they'd lost 2 and handed the title to United, and let's be honest, that's what they've been doing, handing the title, there would have been no comeback for a lot of those players, and certainly not for that coach, Roberto Mancini. It was huge, and it was as dramatic as it gets.
Isn't it amazing what football can do? Because we were, 2 seconds away from calling Manchester City the biggest bottlers of all time in football, never mind just the Premier League. But now we're talking about the greatest finish of all time. I mean, you talk about something in history swinging from one side to the complete opposite in the space of probably just a second with him sticking that ball in the net.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.